everyone, welcome back to OGS Mechanics Workshop, where today we have a Mercedes M-Class. Came in with an oil leak, very common. This is a 164 chassis with a 642 engine, diesel, the V6. The car has been stood for a few hours and it's already quite a significant oil patch under the car. We have seen it quite often. It's a common problem that sometimes it gets misdiagnosed. And we will have it now in the workshop and we'll show you what is the problem for this significant oil leak on the Mercedes diesel engine 3-liter V6. Car up on a ramp, so we'll have a closer inspection underneath on the under tray, where we're suspecting is going to be soaking wet. We already see drips on the floor. We'll have an inspection from underneath. As you can, we're already expecting to see something like that. The under tray is very wet. So it's considerable amount of oil on the top. We will remove the under tray and have a better inspection on the engine. Lots of oil in the under tray, so the oil leak is significant, as we did expect. Now, this type of significant oil leak on the 642 engine, the V6, is quite common, misdiagnosed as coming from crankshaft rear oil seal, the oil seal behind the flywheel, the drive plate in this case, because it's an automatic vehicle. Now we know from experience those oil seals, they rarely fail, but most of the time the leaks comes from the top on the engine in between the cylinder head. So what we're gonna do now, we're gonna drop the car and have it stripped on the top to see exactly where the leak is coming from. So to get the view that we need and access that we need, we'll need to strip quite a lot of components from the engine bay, consisting from the airflow pipes, inlet manifold, intake pipe, turbo, so quite an extensive dismantling required in order to get the clearance required to get to the problem of this oil leak. At this stage, turbocharger is getting removed. We'll have to remove the inlet sections of the manifold, and while we're here, we're gonna replace the actuator for the swivel valves. This is very common, getting faulty from the oil ingress in the unit. What we also notice, the engine breather is leaking. This is the breather. And while we are here, we're gonna replace that also. So still a bit of stripping to get to our problem. This is the turbo bracket also that has incorporated the return and the feed pressure oil circuits for the turbo. A gasket here that also has to be replaced, which sometimes it could be a cause for oil leaks. However, this is not the main reason for the oil leaks. We're still gonna dig a bit until we're gonna get to the cause of the problem. We can already see quite a significant oil amount of oil here, and the way that oil goes on the bottom of the gearbox is by draining through a drain hole. But once we're gonna have the manifold removed, we'll be able to show you better. This is the actuator, the seal valve actuator that we're also gonna replace. As you can see, it's covered in oil, and over time this oil gets into the mechanism and it causes eventually to the actuator to go faulty. Makes a lot of sense to have it replaced now because the turbo needs to be removed, so quite an extensive job. It has to be done a separate time. Inlet assembly has been unbolted and we'll have it removed. Quite a comprehensive assembly. We had to drain also the coolant. Once this is off, we get to the real problem. This is the engine oil cooler, and underneath there are some rubber O-rings which over the time they go bad, they go harden, and they allow the oil to escape. As you can be seen, significant amount of oil in here, and from there oil is draining into the bell housing and we see the oil under the engine. So what we're gonna do now, we have to remove this part, inspect it, and we might decide whether we're gonna replace it completely or just the seals. Quite a significant job, as it can be seen, to reach it. And now the reason that there's a lot of oil in the bell housing is that in here there's a hole, and from here the oil drains down, especially designed in case there are any fluids here, so they are drained, but they are draining the bell housing, and where the oil is leaking is very easily to take and mistaken believe that is coming from the rear oil seal, where in fact it comes from the top, from the oil cooler seals. Also in here can be seen there's another hole. See, in here we also have oil, and when the level goes a bit high, it drains through the hole, and then we'll have oil on the front side of the engine. We have cleaned quite a lot in here, and now we will remove the oil cooler. And in here there are the seals that we are talking about. Those pink seals, they get hardened over time and they allow the oil to escape. Just the rubber that goes bad over time. And then from here, as I was mentioning, lifts the oil to escape, and then through that hole it goes into the bell housing. We will clean the surface, we will inspect the cooler and decide whether we're gonna have just gasket or the complete cooler replaced. We have inspected the oil cooler and it looks quite good. So those are the seals which we're gonna replace. As you can see, the original one, they flatten and they don't seal anymore. New rubber seals, they're gonna do the job. We have cleaned everything in here. We have drained all the oil that was in there, so now it's all dry. What we're also going to do, we're gonna clean the manifold from all the carbon deposit. It also makes sense to be done at this stage while everything is off. We have cleaned the flaps, swivel flaps on the manifold, which were full of carbon. It was quite a massive deposit. They're nice and clean. Makes a difference on how the engine is performing with them cleaned. But while we are here, what I have noticed is this excessive movement. Basically the mechanism is worn out. Similar problem on this side. Not as bad, but since we are here, makes a lot of sense to replace this mechanism. We have a repair kit. It's going to replace the plastic section with the fork that goes on each flap. Also, we have here the swivel flap motors. As you can see, this is covered in oil, and from experience we've seen it before where oil infiltrates inside into the electrics of it and eventually fails. So it makes a lot of sense to put a new motor since we are here. Make sure this aspect is also covered. So we'll proceed now to replace the swivel flap mechanism flap. You can see the play, and we can see how this is worn out. And we have the replacement mechanism, which we're going to install with some grease on the same flap. The flaps, they're going to stay in the same position. We're only going to replace this lever here. With this repair mechanism in place, we have extended the life of this inlet manifold swivel flaps. Now it's totally different, no more play. Oil cooler is back in place, new seals, all ready to install, heads clean. Now the manifold assembly has already had a new motor in, the mechanism on the swivel valves, new gaskets. So the assembly is ready to go back in the car. Quite a fiddly job, especially to install this motor. That's why we prefer to do it while the manifolds are on the bench. Wiring on top of the engine all been secure in place. We have installed a new breather. Here is the turbo bracket, which is also in place. New gaskets on the exhaust, and the turbo goes back in place. Of course, on oilways, always new gaskets. They are one-time use. all the components have now been reinstalled in place. Now, one particular item that requires attention is this airflow duct, which over the time it breaks here where it joins the turbocharger, and it leaks oil, and that oil leaks straight onto the actuator that we've shown you earlier on and we have replaced. So always the grommet, it has also a rubber grommet here. It's important to be in good condition and secure properly. In this situation we put a new rubber grommet, the orange one. And the last thing that is left now is to clean underneath the engine, have the car in the road test and recheck. Looking again from underneath, everything quite wet, and as mentioned on the beginning of the video, this is quite easily mistaken for an oil seal failure, where it actually is a problem with the oil cooler seals. We will get to clean everything and get a car in the drive test. So we have tested the car. We had it on a ramp, had it checked, all dry, the way that it should be. So thanks everyone for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. Please share the video, subscribe to our channel, and stay tuned for more content about car repairs, common faults, and what exactly we get here in the workshop. See you!